This episode of Brains on Games will talk about a deduction game with cats. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald. In this episode, we are going to talk about a deduction game that works for younger kids. It's a game that was sent to me a while back by the folks over at HABA, and I love HABA games. Honestly, one of the reasons why it takes me a while to make videos about HABA's games is that a lot of them are at my office. I recommend these games to parents all the time, so I like to have them handy so that I can show them off. But this is a game that was sent to me some time ago by the folks over at HABA. It's a game called Cloaked Cats. This is a game for kids age 7 and up. You can play it with 2 to 4 players, and a game takes only about 20 minutes. Let's take a deeper look at Cloaked Cats. Cloaked Cats is a very light deduction game. I should say that really it's family weight. I played it with my 18-year-old, and we had a good time figuring out one another's cats. But the theme is it's about cats at a masquerade ball, and each player is trying to guess the features, the appearance of the other player's cats before their own cards are guessed. You can see it's a masquerade ball. There's masks on the back of the cards. Each player is going to have mask tokens in their color. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to shuffle up these invitations to the party. And you shuffle these up. Really, they're all the same, except for one thing about them. One of them is going to have a little wax seal on the bottom. That's going to indicate the first player. And you give that first player, whoever got that invitation, the first player token. That makes it easy to see, to make sure that everyone has the same number of turns as you come to the end of the game. The other thing about these invitations that's really important that you can see here, like I said, you're trying to guess the features of the other player's cats. The invitation shows you all the possibilities, which is very important. It's helpful, especially for kids, to keep track of these things, and the invitation lets you do that. So you've got cats that can be in different poses. They can be all kinds of different colors. There's really lots of variety in color. They can be striped or spotted, and they can have different accessories on their cards. So you'll see that when I show you the pictures of these different cats. These numbers on the side of the invitation, you might be able to see, they're not referring to points. They're referring to how many of those cards are in the feature deck. And this is the feature deck. Let's see, I've got it right over here. The feature deck has these little tiny cards, and you can see them here. So these are going to be shuffled up, and each player is going to get 3 of them. And it shows you might possibly have a certain pose or stripes or spots or a particular color or some accessory that you're going to be trying to prevent the other players from guessing. And you've got these little fans. Now, when I first opened up the box and punched these out, I thought, well, this is kind of a gimmick maybe for the smaller kids with smaller hands to hold their cards. But this is really an important feature of the game, because you're not going to hold on to these feature cards. You're going to be holding, like, the cards that are in your hand are these ones. I'm holding them upside down, but they're these larger ones. So you're going to be hanging on to these ones, and you're going to be putting these in front of you just for reference. So if I get dealt out my hand of 3 cards, I'm going to put them into this fan like this. I'll show you on the camera here. So they all just slide in to make them super easy to see. You don't have to have them all memorized. So you lay them out just like this, and they're going to be standing up in front of you so the other players can't see them. Now, you may have noticed that you might get different versions of the same feature twice. So this one has 2 different positions. So you might have a cat who's sitting here like a boss, or a cat who's prancing, and your cat can do both of those things. Cats can have multiple colors, so you might have 2 different colors. You might have stripes and spots. It's starting to get a little unusual there maybe, but the rule book says, well, you know, some of these combinations might be rare, but not impossible for a cat to be lazy and playful, maybe at the same time or at different times over their life. So you're going to have these 3 things. You're trying to keep the other players from guessing them. The other things that you'll get are these little mask tokens, and you're going to use these throughout the game, and they also will allow you to count up points at the end of the game. Once all the players have their features in their fan and they're all set up in that way, they're going to draw a hand of 3 cards. You're always going to have 3 cards, and you definitely want to make sure you have a lot of space on the table when you're playing this game, especially with younger kids, because if you're having trouble guessing, there's going to be more and more cats that fill up that table space, which is called the dance floor. So all the cats are coming out on the dance floor, and that's what you're using to guess the other player's cat's features. Now, here is an example. On your turn, you're going to do, well, up to 4 things. There's one step that's optional, but you're going to do 4 things. You're going to play a card from your hand. So you've only got 3 cards to choose from. I'm going to play one of these cards. So I've got a black cat who's got stripes, who's kind of prancing like this. Now, it does match one of the features here in my fan. The next thing that's going to happen is that all of the players are going to reveal whether a feature matches the features that are in their fan. So in this case, if I'm the purple player, because I've got this purple fan, I have to put a mask on here to show that one of the features matches, one or more features. Now, there could be multiple things. I could have a blue cat that's prancing like this. I'm still only going to put one fan on here, and that makes it harder for the other players to guess. Maybe the yellow player has a striped cat, so they're going to put a mask on there as well. The next thing that happens is optional. So first you play a card. Next, everybody reveals whether the card matches the features that they have in their fan. The third optional step is that you can take a guess. Once the dance floor starts to fill up, you can start to guess what cards are in the other player's fans according to where they're placing and not placing those masks. The final thing that's going to happen is that you're going to refill your hand, and then the next player gets to play a turn. It is sort of neat because you get everybody involved in each player's turn, because you're all going to be looking at the card they played and deciding, does that match one of the features that I have or not? And then they all place their little masks on there. It is tricky because you've only got the choice of those 3 cards, and you do want to play a card that's not going to give too much away about the cards that you have. So this was maybe not a great play for me for my first card to have to put a mask down right away. I maybe would have wanted to put this card down, and then I would put no masks on it. And at the beginning, that it gives you a bit of information. My cat's not white. My cat doesn't have spots. My cat isn't jumping in the air like this. And you can see that none of those things match. So I would not put a mask on this one. And as the grid of cards fills up, you're going to see that there are some, let's see, I would need to put a purple one on here. And I don't have a top hat or anything like that. There's no blue cats. And then the other players might be playing some too. Let's see if I can find a blue one. Each turn, a player is going to play a card. You're going to put your mask down on there to show that you have a feature or not. A player might guess. Now, if a player guesses right, what happens? You take the card out of your fan and you reveal it to all the players. Now, you still have to place a mask down on these prancing cats. So if another one comes up like this, I would still have to put a mask on it, even though this is revealed. It does make it confusing because you don't know, is the purple player identifying some new detail? Like, does he have a ball of yarn, or is he just referring to the fact that his cat is in this same pose? So it remains complicated. If you do guess an opponent's card correctly, like I said, they reveal their card, they have to give you one of their masks, and that's how you keep track of points at the end. It's much easier to keep track of points when it's a 2-player game, but once you get 3 or 4 people playing, who's getting the right guesses, it's important to keep track of that, so you get a point at the end of the game for each of these masks that you've collected from the other players. Now we have a few cards out. I'm only identifying my own features here because I didn't draw feature cards for another player. But you can see how as this tableau fills out in the middle of the table, you're getting more and more information about the other players' cats that they have, the features that they have in their fan. And the game is going to end as soon as one player has all of their cards from their fan revealed. Then you finish the turn, you go around the table until everybody's had an equal number of guesses. But once one player's cards are revealed, the other players that round don't get to play more cards or place more masks. That all they can do is take a guess. So you might get a chance for one final guess based on the information that's already on the table to try and earn another point before the game ends. And then you just count up points. You get a point for each of your unrevealed features. So if the game ends and I still have one of these cards in here, I'm going to get a point. You also get a point for each of your correct guesses. Remember that your correct guesses are going to give you one of these masks. Now, if you guess wrong, I didn't even mention this. If you guess wrong, if another player said, oh, I think that your cat maybe is black, and my cat isn't black, if you guess wrong, then you have to give the other player one of your masks. So you get points for guessing correctly. You get points if other players guess your features incorrectly, and then you count up points, and that's how you're going to win the game. Now, what skills are you working on when you play a game of Cloaked Cats? Well, this is a game that's so much about logical thinking. You're using how these masks are placed to deduce what are the features that are being identified. And because there are so many different features here to choose from, you really have to look at a lot of information. You also want to be logical about which cards you play so that you're getting information from the other players but not giving too much away. So you may want to play a card that has a feature that's already been revealed from your cards that everyone already knows about, because then that's not going to give as much information to the other players. One factor when we're talking about that kind of logical thinking, logical problem solving, is pattern recognition. You're looking at the way that those masks are laid out and using that information to figure out, well, what's the pattern here? What's trying to be identified? You're working with that incomplete information to figure out what rule is being used here to place those masks. And the rule for each player is based on those 3 cards that they have in their fan. So if you're working with that incomplete visual information and you're doing that logical problem solving, those are examples of flexible problem solving or fluid reasoning skills. And fluid reasoning is a very important ability when we're talking about psychological testing and IQ. It's a huge factor and maybe one of the most important cognitive factors in terms of academic success. Another skill that's coming into play here is working memory. Working memory is the whiteboard in your mind. It's where you keep information so that you can work with it. And you definitely are exercising working memory skills when you're looking at all of these masks and the cards that have no masks, and you're trying to rule in or rule out different features that the other players are identifying by the way they place those things. There's a lot of information to juggle, and when you're juggling lots of information, that is a good example of a working memory exercise. So you've got logical thinking, fluid reasoning, and working memory are all being developed here. Now, of course, finally, along with working memory, there's a real attention factor, a concentration factor, and attention to detail that's important here so that you don't make mistakes and make incorrect guesses. Final thoughts about Cloaked Cats. Well, this is a game that is a lot like Clue. If you've played Clue before, then you're sort of familiar with these kinds of deduction games. So it's a lot like Clue, but you've got that animal theme. The artwork is fun. There are lots of different choices that you're making here, but all of the information is available to everyone at the same time. You might, on other players' turns, be looking at the way that the cards are laid out and trying to figure out your guess before you play your card. Because it's a deduction game that's practicing those logical thinking skills. This is something that I used to love watching my kids do when they were playing a game or doing some activity. Just seeing those skills develop. I still like to see that. I don't mind losing a game to my kids because I love it when they figure out something faster than I did. That's fantastic when that happens. So as a parent, I love watching those skills develop. And this is a good way not just to watch them develop, but to allow them to practice those abilities. I had a teacher who used to say that there's certain kind of activities that are training you in a habit of mind. So that idea of just getting into the habit of paying close attention to details and being thoughtful about things before you take a guess about something that you're unsure about. The components here are fun. The artwork is fun. It's a game that's quick to play. It's in a small box, so it's easy to bring anywhere. You couldn't really play it outside because it is a game that has cards that would blow away in the wind, but it is a game that you can transport easily. Like I said, quick to play, quick to learn, quick to teach. And I love games like that, especially for young kids. It requires some focus, but not so much so that the younger kids are going to be left out. So it's just an easy game to get into. There's not a single downside to this one, other than maybe you need a big table to play it on if you're playing with young kids who are having trouble getting all of those features right. So more and more cats are coming out onto that dance floor, but that's not a downside at all. Once again, this is a great game from HABA. Thanks so much to the folks at HABA for sending this game my way. And if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comment section below the video, or you can email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will go, and the previous ones are up there already. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed, so we're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.